All right. Got a episode here of the Industrialist. Got a special guest today, Mr. Sherman Barnes with Bennett Transportation. Kind of excited about this, man, because you work in the world of the real estate we operate in, and
Yes.
so it's be interesting to kind of hear your perspective on things. But really more interesting is, man, I know we just kind of got to know each other here recently, but man, you got a really cool story. I really like your story, and so I think people need to hear your story, and so that's why I'm really excited to hear today and to share that with everybody. So
Sounds good, and thanks for having me. I'm excited to share.
yeah,
Appreciate being here.
absolutely. So let's just start from the beginning, man. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? And where you been? So
Okay, yeah. So again, Sherman Barnes. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm from Jackson, Mississippi. Was born and raised, so my family's still there. So I'm the oldest. My parents been married for 47 years.
that's
So
awesome.
I'm 45. Learned a lot being from the South. I'm proud of it. Proud of Mississippi.
Yeah.
It's definitely not a lot of opportunity. So as soon as I had an opportunity to, after college, I left and moved to Atlanta. And my best friend said I could sleep on his couch. I had $350. And I thought, worst case, it'd be a cool summer that I could say I had in Atlanta and I moved back home.
Yeah.
But I had interviews and different things set up, and I landed on my feet. I landed with C.H. Robinson,
Yeah.
Which is a major freight brokerage. And that was the start of my transportation journey. I was with them for about 4.5 years. Left, went with UPS for about another 4 years.
Yep.
And then I was with Schneider. And then now I am with Bennett Motor Express. So I've been in the business since 2005 and seen a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah.
But I've learned a ton, and it made me a student of business. It helped me develop business acumen, develop strong relationships and people skills. So, excited to share more detail as we engage in the conversation.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you're right out of college. You're in Atlanta, sleeping on your buddy's couch. You just interviewing with whoever. Or was freight like something you were interested in, or was it just
That's a good question. So my father, growing up, was a shipping and receiving supervisor.
okay?
So during the summertime, so he actually worked for Roadway. He worked for Levi Stroud.
Okay.
He also worked for a company used to be called Delphi. I'm not sure if you heard of them
Yep.
before or not.
Mhm.
So during the summer times, when I was in college or whatnot, I would go and drive forklifts at his warehouse. Since he was a supervisor, he was able to hire me.
Yeah.
So I got my feet wet in transportation, like loading the trucks up and things like that. But to be frank, I was not interested in the business.
Yeah.
It was just an opportunity to get a job during the summer, a nice paying job, and
Yeah.
things like that. So I didn't intend to get into the business, but I kind of did from that perspective.
Yeah.
Now, moving to Atlanta, I graduated from college, so I went to Jackson State. I know Jackson State's been in the news quite a bit with Deion Sanders or whatnot when he went there, and that was a great time. But I had interviews set up, so I did not just go with no game plan at all.
Yeah.
I did have interviews set up with, I know, C.H. Robinson. I think I had a Blockbuster and a couple of other jobs. I don't even remember what they are now. And I just figured, hey, somebody's going to hire me. And the first company to hire me happened to be C.H. Robinson. And I got really, really lucky there because I learned a lot about business. The freight brokerage business is, probably like real estate. It's a sink or swim business.
Yep.
You get trained, but you really had to have that, like Deion said, you got to have that dog in you, man.
Yeah.
You can't quit. You can't just, somebody say, boo.
Yeah.
You jump. You got to build the fortitude and the strength to be able to do it. And my background actually helped me in that endeavor. So they threw me in, but I was able to survive and learned a ton. And so that's how I actually got into it. So kids out there, don't just move without a job.
Yeah.
I definitely had, I did not have a job formally, but I had several interviews set up and I had a plan for executing on that. And it worked out for me.
Yeah, no, that's so you get to C.H. Robinson and it's a brokerage business. So, like you said, you get trained, but kind of, right? Like
sort of. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so what is it like, hey man, here's a pile of numbers, go call them all and start, trying to move freight, or like, what to explain that process.
I can answer. That's a good question again. So typically, and this is at any brokerage, like I said, C.H. Robinson, I was super blessed to be there. But typically what you're doing is you got to learn the terminology. You got to learn about transportation. So they will send you to corporate for, let's say a week or something for a deep dive training into just, again, terminology. What's a 53-foot dry van? What's a 48-foot dry van? What's a flatbed? What's a step deck? Some of the terminology that you learn, you're drinking out of a fire hose, so you don't, some things are starting to stick, but you're not quite sure. So after that training, you come back home, to your home office. Mine happened to be in Atlanta at the time, and you are on a team with other people. And this is not just Robinson. This is at other brokerages. And we have different models or whatnot, but this is in general how it works, is that they'll put you a part of a team, and that team will have customers that they have freight that they're responsible for picking up. So I'm looking here. I don't want to say a brand. I don't know if we can do that or not. But let's say there's a water company, and that particular pod has that 10 customers. I'll be responsible for helping to cover the freight for that particular customer that pod has. And so what that means is I'm talking to drivers. The driver will call in, hey, my name's Buck in a truck, and, I'm supposed to pick this load up from Atlanta to Brooklyn, New York. I need directions. So I got to give that driver directions. I got to set up, I may have to set up pickup appointments on the pickup side. I got to set up delivery appointments on the delivery side. So you're basically doing essentially the time-consuming grunt work that the major brokers don't want to do, like your more senior brokers don't want to do, but that's how you learn the business. So I wouldn't be surprised if you have interns or different things in your industry that come in and they're kind of doing the grunt work, but you're learning the business and you're getting more and more responsibility as more time goes on.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how I got thrown into it.
Yeah.
But you do get some training, but the best training comes from as you're developing more opportunities to get deeper and deeper into the business.
Yeah.
You're making mistakes. You're seeing other people make mistakes. Somebody cussing you out because you forgot to put the right number, the pickup number, or the driver was late and like, Sherman, where's my truck? And I got a call or whatnot. So it's very intense. It's not for everybody, but that's how I learned.
Yeah. Yeah, no. We got an intern out there doing all the things we don't want to do.
Said differently, we paid our dues already, and so it's a good training ground. So we'll definitely let them do that work to get that training. Yeah,
it's the things that need to be done, but I've ran that lap enough, right? So,
and I'll get in there if I have to, but I do not want to if I don't have to.
The preference is not to. So, that's kind of interesting if you think about like you had to like literally. Okay, so just think about the evolution of like computers, internet, GPS, all that stuff. Like you had to get on the phone and give people directions back then, which that's not really a thing anymore, right? Everybody's got a phone and
yes.
So it's talk about kind of the evolution within logistics of like just technology and like how you've seen that.
So that's been definitely different. Now technology is grown massively with AI, with automated services where a driver can get directions without even having to deal with a human being. But in I started in May of 2005.
Yeah.
So you had the internet obviously and email capability obviously, but you had to print out an order, call the driver, give them directions, deal with irritated drivers, deal with irritated customers. You really had to have hand-to-hand combat skills, if you will, and learn to negotiate with human beings. That's one of the challenges. Technology is great. I'm a benefactor of technology. Yeah. I do enjoy using it when I can. One of my concerns is for other younger people that are not used to doing some things manual. Are you good at developing interpersonal skills, communication skills, the ability to read a room, knowing how to negotiate? These are things that are, a computer system can't really teach you.
No.
And those are things that you really have to learn. So in the beginning, we were still using faxes. That wasn't uncommon. The technology, it wasn't there. So the driver, if he didn't pick up the phone, as an example, I didn't know where the hell he was.
Right.
So like right now, there are different applications on the truck or different applications on the driver's phone where even if I'm not able to talk to the driver, I can at least see
where he's
it's
at.
A blip where he is. Mm-hmm. And if he didn't pick up the phone, I don't know where he is. Yeah. So I got to blow his phone up literally day and night to catch him. And there were issues that would happen. I mean, there's anomalies in the system that would happen occasionally, but you had to use the manual tools that you had, man. And to me, that's a great benefit of mine, that I have that perhaps other people don't have. Because I'm not scared to pick up the phone and call nobody. I'm not scared to walk into a room and talk to nobody.
Right.
I'm not scared to go to the back of a dock door and talk to anybody. It's like I always remember one of my favorite speakers that I used to listen to. He's passed now, named Jim Rohn.
Oh yeah.
And he said that what does the word no mean to a child? Almost nothing. Yeah. And that's my ethos. It's like no, it's no today, but is that no tomorrow?
Yeah.
What about next week? What about next quarter? What about next year? If it's a good fit and a good customer profile, I just don't quit. And so to me, having things that are analog, like computerization,
Yeah.
it develops that strength, man, that you need to push and be successful.
So, to talk about how technology is, it helped, it streamlined a lot of things, but at the end of the day, it takes you out of a lot of situations.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Talk about, so you don't get the reps in situational awareness, right? Being able to read a room, being able to kind of deal with a conflict, someone that's pissed off or whatnot. So it's, to your, it's weird. You and I were kind of talking about this today, is how our kids are growing up versus how we kind of,
sheltered,
right? I live in Prosper, you live in Frisco.
Yeah.
It's as you say, it's the Orange County of North Texas, and I grew up in South Irving, you grew up in Jackson, Mississippi, and we kind of there's some things that get lost in the comfort of things.
100%.
And it's the same thing with technology and business, and so it's the same thing with even younger people coming up in business. They're going to lose the situational reps. We have a real pet peeve here is when brokers want to negotiate with us on text. And I'm like, I don't negotiate through text. I want a signed letter of intent with red line changes in it. I don't want to, hey, what do you think about this? I want but a lot of they just want to rely on the text or whatever, and all that stuff. And it's a great tool, right? Because the speed and efficiency of things, but at the same time, it degrades the ability to develop other skills.
Yeah,
so.
Because even like as you're talking about text, and using that tool, the technology's there, but the first thing I'm thinking about in transportation, Murphy's Law, like what can go wrong will go wrong. Like I've seen I got stories galore of things that have gone sideways.
Yep.
So if you text me something and I say, yeah, sure, and you forget to put it in the contract and then it's not there, it doesn't exist.
Right.
So just things like that. You're going to miss those opportunities for cost savings. You're going to miss those opportunities for negotiation just because I'm dependent on the tech. You texting me and me remembering what's all in there. The attorney's not able to read that text. He doesn't know what's in there. So put it on a paper and being, more orderly and things. I'm a big believer in that because if it's not on paperwork or if it's not recorded or whatever, then it didn't happen from a legal perspective.
Sure.
And, we're driving products worth, the average truck may be worth $100,000 worth of product that's on the truck, but sometimes that gets to $250,000. Sometimes if it's a MacBooks or iPad, whatever it may be, it could be $1 million worth of material on that truck. We have to know, where everything is. Everything needs to be outlined.
Yeah.
Who's responsible for what, when, where, and how. And you can't do that in a text when you're dealing with, millions of dollars worth of product that's shipping across the border or whatever it may be. I'm not doing that through text. So I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. It's funny, man, because we negotiate a lot of contracts here, a lot of leases or whatever, and people are like, well, we don't have to put that in the contract. It's not really going to happen. I'm like,
hell, we don't. Yeah.
I was like, that's the exact reason why we're going to put in the contract because we don't account for it, and it happens. And I tell you what, every time I've ever gotten my ass burned is from maybe moving quickly and just being like, just forget it. We'll deal with that later. And then, whoa, it's funny. I was showing you that building out there just a minute ago that we bought during bankruptcy, right? Well, I got thrown into that bankruptcy. The tenant went into bankruptcy while we were under contract without me knowing.
Oh, wow.
And so anyways, that there were some complexities there, but we got through it all. But like we're in the situation right now, we're buying another building where the tenant's in bankruptcy and we know going in ahead of time.
Nice.
And man, it is a hot deal, and I'm all over it. But I'm just like, no, it's got to be papered right. Like we've been negotiating the contract now for 2 weeks. Where normally on a building like this, I would have signed a contract site like just on.
I know what you mean.
But I was like, you know what? I've dealt this. My attorney's fees on that last deal ended up costing me like $60,000 because of the bankruptcy stuff.
Yeah,
and I'm like, hey, we're just papering this right going into this. And so it, hey, what is it? Have you ever heard that phrase, slow is smooth, smooth is fast,
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I agree because in transportation, man, you got to think about it. I'm a salesperson, clearly, but transportation is all about the execution of something that's been sold.
Yeah.
And so a person can sell and say anything out of their mouth. I mean, I can say I'm a unicorn right now. I mean, whatever, but the person that has to implement what I've sold, like the payment terms. Well, I said it could be there Wednesday, and my operator's like, dude, this thing's no way, it can't physically move. Like it's against the law to move, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So trucking, a lot can go wrong is my point. Where we're physically taking possession of said product within a certain constrained time frame, whether, constraints, whatever it may be, is there a building going on and we didn't know about it. So there's a lot that can go wrong. So we have to be orderly and we have to be very detailed around what is going on with each shipment. It's because if you don't, things do go wrong, and that can go wrong pretty badly in my world. So I don't, I'm a Reagan type, trust but verify.
Yeah.
I believe you're a great guy. But I need to see this on the paperwork, because I'll give you an example. Like a customer may tell me, we do over-dimensional freight.
Okay.
So like, one
oversized loads.
Yeah, oversized loads. So we have a couple of loads that we did recently that are 250,000 pounds.
I saw that thing on your LinkedIn. Yeah. What were those?
It was a big rolling machine that was used to do something else. I don't even remember that was a while back, but I don't remember. But my point being, that customer, we need to know the dimensions. Mm-hmm. We need to know how heavy it is, because, like as you mentioned with when we talk about the DFW airport, that it's 6 foot deep, that it has to be. Yeah. Like, I need to know those things. Like, where are the bridge passages? What's the route optimization? Where is this going? Yeah. And sometimes a customer will tell me, well, hey, I think that the last time we did this, and I'm like, not a think. Yeah. If I need to talk to your engineer, if I need to talk to your operator, like who would know to the inch?
Yeah.
What are the dimensions of this shipment? Because if we get to a certain part of, Utah or California, whatever it may be, and that bridge, if we can't get past it, that's a problem. Yeah. That's a real problem. And then we may have people on site. Like, so with that customer, as an example, to take something that large off, you got to have cranes and rigging. Yeah. That's not an appointment like that I'm pulling up to a Walmart dock door where they're there 24/7. Yeah. They're hiring people to come on site for a specific period of time. It's a project. Yeah. So I have to know these things. It's extremely detail oriented. So I have to know those things. And the average shipment, as an example, for flatbed, let's say it's like 46, 45, 48,000. Mm-hmm. That's pretty standard for flatbed. This is 250,000 and it's super large. So I have to know the details. So in my world, I get really anal about details for shipments, because it can cause really, really big issues, and it can cost a lot of money and a lot of time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, doing it you end up doing it twice, right?
Yeah. They say measure twice, cut once. For sure.
Yeah. What? Well, let's talk about the evolution then from C.H. Robinson. You go to UPS. Are you in a different role at UPS, or is it another brokerage role? Or
no. So with C.H. Robinson, it was brokerage, which is full truckload, flatbed, step deck, and some heavy haul. Yeah. With UPS, I went to the freight forwarding side of the business. Okay. So freight forwarding means you're shipping by air, you're shipping by ocean, and then you're doing the custom brokerage work. So I was with them for 4 years. It was a completely different business. So the type of person that I am, I like to learn and I like to grow. Yep. I wanted to become a supply chain expert. So that's why I pivoted from domestic truckload, freight brokerage to freight forwarding, so I could learn about those things. Yeah. And the reason why, again, not only due to my expertise, but because when you're dealing with customers, not all, but some customers do international and they do flatbed and they do intermodal, which is called rail. Yep. And so I wanted to just really understand the full scope of how do you source products, where are they coming from? How do they get where they're going? And so when I went to UPS, it was amazing there because I had a chance to see importation of products coming into the U.S. via ocean vessel. Like most of the products that come into the U.S. are coming in via ocean. Those containers that are coming in. Yep. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. I've been to several ports in Savannah and Cali, a lot of different places, and it's pretty magical what happens. And actually, the ocean container, funny enough, it was a trucking guy that developed that technology.
Really?
So I'm calling it technology, but it was so before that, you were not able to stack containers like trucks on top of one another. So a guy named McLean went and designed a technology where he could take the container like off of his truck and put it on ocean or whatnot, and vice versa. So he developed that technology so that you could stack containers on top of each other. That's a little known fact. And there's a book called The Box. Yeah. I'm in transportation, but I'm a freight nerd. Like I know the history of freight. I soaked it all up just because I had to, and it made me a better person. But I think that working at UPS, another thing that I learned was, I would say, more business acumen. Yeah. The brokerage world, it's professional, but it can be a little bit of a frat house in some ways.
Gotcha.
And I mean it in a kind way. Like I had a blast and I learned a lot and you get work done. And it is professional. I'm not saying that, but UPS, it's 100 years old. It's over 100 years old.
Yeah.
So it was a lot more clean cut, crisp communication skills. So I was able to get some of the business acumen and professionalism and executive presence that I was not able to get at CH because they just kind of throw you in and it's a pod and it's a branch. You know, you're working at a large, massive corporation that's 100 years old. That's where I really learned to polish my skills. And I come in at that point, because if I was at CH, if you told me, hey, can I go meet with a CEO, I'd be nervous about it. You know, I'm still a college kid, you know, we're not fresh out of college. And it's not just my youth. It was just we didn't interact with those people. You know, we're interacting with transportation manager or director of transportation. But when we went to UPS, the level of business acumen and training that you got, you could introduce me to the president, to anybody, and I will feel comfortable that I'm able to effectively communicate with that person to get my point across and influence them and develop a relationship. Like that I got from UPS. If there's nothing else I got from there, that's the biggest thing I got from there. Yeah.
So after, you know, I want to touch on one thing you talked about was the ports, man. And I've never really, you know, I mean, so my experience in freight, I grew up in the steel company pretty much. So I'm really familiar with flatbeds because that's all, you know, outside I love flatbed all day long, you know, all that stuff. But I'd never really been to a port. And man, we put a building under contract in the Port of Houston. And man, I went down there to the Port of Houston and it was like industrial, real estate, trucks, 24/7, 365. We don't stop. I mean, it was kind of exciting, man.
Yeah.
It was like, God, and you just see the big, I guess they're cranes that are just moving the, it's just like, and you see the truck, boom, the truck just takes off out of there, boom, another truck just taking off out of there. I was like, this is insane.
It's like a symphony and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, you know, at home, you know, I see a package show up from Amazon, but that's where, you know, that's a huge part of where everything's coming from, man. It's an amazing. So I'm glad that you had a chance to see that. And what's unique about Houston as well is they do a lot of heavy haul too. So different ports specialize in different things. So like if we're in Florida, there's a lot of like fruits and flowers and beverages or whatnot. I mean, not beverages, but it's like fruits and like, you know, bananas or whatnot coming in
produce
Florida.
Type stuff.
Produce types of things, right? So every port has a specialization of sorts, not exactly, but of sorts, based on different things.
Yeah, yeah. So they just probably have different equipment for different stuff. And
yes.
Yeah, you know. So, yeah, no, it's funny. His name's not Bubba, but Uncle Bubba, our Uncle Bubba. He's a crane operator at the port, you know. And so he's like sitting there in that crane all day long.
Yeah. But you are from Texas.
yeah, for sure. And so, but yeah, that was just, it was very interesting to me. And it's funny that we're starting to buy down in Houston now, or we're attempting to. And I'm just like, and the port's a really tight market, but I'm like, golly, I would just buy down here. Like, you're never gonna have a problem backfilling a building down in the port. But it's very interesting seeing all of that. And then, let's talk about then. So you from UPS, then where do you go?
So when I was at UPS, then I got a call from Schneider.
Yep.
Now Schneider is the orange trucks you see up and down the highway, but one of their largest solutions is intermodal, which is just, you know, Schneider Intermodal has their own boxes and they put it on the rail. So I was intrigued because I had already done domestic full truckload, flatbed, you know, and some LTL. And then I went to UPS. I learned about air ocean custom brokerage. So one of the last frontiers of major transportation that's done is via the rail. So that was what intrigued me to go to Schneider. So I went to Schneider as a director of sales for about 10 months in Atlanta. And then I got an opportunity to be VP of sales for them if I was willing to move to Green Bay, Wisconsin, which I promised my wife it was going to be 2 years in Wisconsin, and it ended up being about 4.5. But I was VP of sales with them for their intermodal division for 2.5. And then I was VP of supply chain solutions for them for the last 2 years. And supply chain solutions is just, you may have heard of companies like Ryder, Penske, Uber Freight, where they fully manage the customer's full supply chain versus just truckload or just intermodal or just air and ocean. So that was a pretty interesting time at Schneider in Green Bay. It was cold. You know, remember, I'm a country boy. I'm from Mississippi. You know, I went ice fishing, you know, all of that stuff. And it's a great place, a great company, great people. But it definitely gets cold. And the Packers are something else, man.
Yeah.
It was amazing. The open top, cold.
Yeah.
If you haven't been, you gotta get up there, man. I
No,
actually got an Airbnb
in the fall, not in the winter.
Yeah.
I'll go to a game in September up there.
Yeah,
September, maybe early October. About past that, I think I'm out.
Yeah, I actually have an Airbnb with a partner or two of mine that's across the street from the Packer Stadium.
Yeah,
and it's epic, man. It's amazing.
So when you lived there, the town owns the team, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
if you pay property taxes, do you automatically become an owner of the Green Bay Packers?
I'm not sure how that works.
Did you ever get any checks is what I'm getting at.
No, I did not. And then here's what's interesting too, is that to get season tickets or whatnot, it was some kind of weird system where you can't just get tickets. They're passed down to the family. So there's some people that are waiting like 20, 30 years on a wait list to get tickets. Now, you can buy tickets on the open market or, you can buy tickets, but in terms of like family generational ticket, like it's people that were waiting for 30-something years. So I thought maybe I can come and get into the line and stuff. Nah, like it's because you got to think. So Green Bay, I'd say it has around 250,000 people. So it's like in Jackson, Mississippi, as an example, has 500,000 people. So I would say where I'm from is pretty small, especially relative to like an Atlanta where I lived or, or whatnot. And then, so maybe what city here that maybe has 250,000? I don't even know. But take that small town and then smack like an NFL team right in the middle of it. I haven't seen that before. Yeah. So the level of activity surrounding it, the level of enthusiasm, like when it's a severe snow in the open stadium, the fans will come out and clean it up. Yeah. So workers will come, clean it up too. But the fans, they're so passionate about the team. They'll come and clean out the stadium too to get the snow off in preparation for the game. Wow. So I've never seen that before. Yeah. But it grew on me. The Packers grew on me just because as a community, it's just such a big deal there. And then obviously, as I was sharing with you, Green Bay is actually 2.7% African American. Yeah. And so I got to know Packer players and Packer coaches and whatnot just because it wasn't that many out there. And so we just got to know each other. But it was a great community, man, great people, and a great team. I'm rooting for them. Yeah. I'm rooting for them.
Well, okay, so let's talk about, so you get with Schneider for the rail aspect of it, right? So how does that work? Like, okay, I'm Schneider. Like, are you brokering rail loads between like UP and GAF Supply or something? Or what does that exactly work? Because I got a real stigma with the rail, and we'll get to that here in a second. But
and I have friends at the rails, so I'll be careful how I answer. But so here's how it works. So some companies, it's two ways that you can do it. The first way is, yes, I can broker a box on behalf of an intermodal provider. So let's say CSX, they have boxes that I can use. It's their company-owned box. I can take my water customers' freight, put it on the rail, get it, and they provide a door-to-door solution. So the rail will pick it up. And when I say rail, let me explain this too. So on the rail, you go from point A to point B, but on the back end to pick it up, an actual truck with a intermodal container is going to back up to the dock door. Because the rail, unless the rail is running right next to, the rail, which that's the specialization of rail. But what I'm talking about is 53-foot, standard intermodal container shipments. A driver is going to come to your location, pick that up on a 53-foot intermodal container, take it to the local rail yard, which is closest to the rail, take it off of that chassis, which is the wheels. The chassis has the wheels. Put it on the rail container, and then it's going to go through the rail network to get to, let's say, Chicago. Once it gets to the Chicago rail network, the railroad, using their own box again, is going to bring their own driver, pick that box up, and then take it to its final destination door to door. So they'll provide a door-to-door solution. And me as a broker, I can use that box and that solution. But with other companies that have their own boxes, like a J.B. Hunt or a Schneider or whatnot, they have their own boxes. I think, like J.B. Hunt has 100,000 intermodal container boxes. They use their own boxes in their own drayage network to pick up on the front end and deliver on the back end. So they're controlling more. The only thing that they rely on the rails for is to take it from, once it gets to the origin intermodal side to the destination intermodal piece. But their drivers come and pick up their own box. So it doesn't, the railroad, they're not using the railroad's boxes. They're using their own boxes and drivers and chassis and stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, okay. drayage. Is drayage getting it to the rail?
Yes.
Is that's what that term means? I hear it all the time. They're like, oh, it's because
but it also means getting it from the ocean port
to the
as
rail.
well. Yes.
Okay.
To the rail or to a transloading facility where we can put it on a truck and then ship it somewhere else too.
Gotcha.
So drayage is just taking all they're doing, like one driver, all he's doing is going back and forth, Savannah port to this port. He may do that 6 times a day, 8 times, depending on the port, obviously, and how busy it is. That's all that person does.
Yeah.
Versus other drivers may do long distance shipping.
Gotcha.
You know, but all that person does is
Drayage
a certain amount of drays
loop
per driver per day.
Yeah.
You know, 6, whatever it is, 4, 5, 6, 8 drays per driver per day. Like that's what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
It's just so that's what you were seeing at the port.
Yeah.
You know, with all of the activity going on,
Yeah.
some of those guys, that's all they're doing. That's all they're doing. They're at home every night versus long distance stuff.
So I'll tell you my strife with the rail. I had a client. We were agreed to on a deal. It's 330,000 foot. It was a tenant rep assignment. I'm repping the tenant. 330,000 foot warehouse in Arlington. There's a sleeve coming into the building that's a rail sleeve. UP's delivering next door, and this was for a third party logistics company. I was representing a third-party logistics company, and their client was a very large roofing manufacturer, roofing materials manufacturer. And we go to lease the building. We get the lease all agreed to. The owner of the building, the landlord, tells us that the building is rail served. I'm like, okay, it's rail. I mean, there's rail coming here. There's rail right there. You know, I'd never done a rail deal. And so anyways, I was like, well, I guess, do we need to call somebody or like, make sure this, and so I end up calling the UP and they go, oh yeah, we haven't served that site in over 6 months. So we don't consider it rail served anymore. I go, well, you're literally delivering next door and here's the customer, AB, XYZ, whoever they are, like probably a pretty big client of y'all's, right? They go, yeah, no big, that's not how we do it. You need to do they call it a 10% study and spend $30,000 on it and it'll take you 6 months to do it. And then we'll hold it for about 6 months and review it and tell you if we'll service you. And I'm just like, what the hell?
Yep.
And it killed my deal.
Yeah.
Killed it. And about the same time I was, about around the same time I was in an airport a week or two later or whatever. And I looked up and it had like a commercial and it was Union Pacific or I can't remember. It was some rail,
Yep.
right? There's like 3 of them really, or 3 main ones, right?
Class 1 railroads. Yep.
And they were advertising. And I was like, why are y'all advertising? You're like a monopoly. Like, why even they're like, moving America. I was like, okay, sure. Like, anyways, that's my rant and beef with rail. But anyways, I digress. So, but rail's interesting because it's become a part of, Dallas Fort Worth is a very big logistics hub. I mean, it is primarily logistics versus like Houston's a manufacturing hub, really. Mm-hmm. And, as we discussed earlier, we own a lot of just more like truckload sites. Those are the kind of things, that we look for and whatnot. But you were telling me this the other day when we were eating breakfast, but like, I kind of call this your Green Bay bet, but I liked your thought process of taking explain your thought process of taking a VP position at Green Bay and why you thought that was a great move. Because this is very interesting when you told me this the other day.
A career strategy.
Yeah.
So I was in Atlanta, right? And Atlanta is highly competitive, just like Dallas or any major city. So where I come from in Mississippi, the best and brightest minds, the most aggressive people typically leave.
Yep.
They may go to Houston or to Dallas or to Atlanta, and that's happening all across the country. You're living in Mobile, Alabama, it's a smaller town. You're going to find what's the nearest big city I can get to and make some money, become successful. So I moved to Atlanta and I did well there, but I felt that I knew I could have become a VP in Atlanta, but maybe not. And maybe it would have taken more years, because it's just, again, it's extremely competitive. So when I saw that there was an opportunity to go to a smaller town, and get that position. The way I calculated it in my mind was that's why I told my wife it was going to take 2 years. Because if I stay a year and then I left, even if I leave my own volition, if I leave, people are going to be like, oh, he went up, he tried to be a leader and it didn't quite work out. He must not have been that good.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be able to take that role into another role at that same level.
Yeah.
2 years for my research was like, well, okay, you're there long enough to demonstrate value and show that, okay, it's plausible that person went there for 2 years, wife was ready to leave and move back down south.
Yeah.
And so if I take another job, then they'd have to crown me and make me a VP again because I'm at that level. Like once I'm at that level and I'm able to demonstrate value, obviously I need to do what I'm doing. Obviously I need to be, executing right.
Yeah.
So I can get good referrals. But that was my calculation, was that I'm going to a smaller town, where it's less competition. I'm willing to move to this town when other people that are in Atlanta or other parts of the country that worked for this organization are not willing to move to this small town. If I am, then checkmate, I beat you and I get the opportunity. And once I demonstrate value, even that can't be taken away from me. Like I was a VP, 2 years, whatever it may be. So then if let's say I want to go back to Atlanta, I'm coming back to Atlanta
as a VP.
Yeah. So that's how I made that calculation.
I thought that was just very clever when you told me that. I thought that was very interesting. I've coined that your Green Bay bet. So
I like that. Yeah. And really, it's not just about obviously Green Bay. It's several towns it's particularly in trucking. There are small towns that have major corporations within them. And so if you're in a big city and it's super competitive and you're talented, now again, you got to be talented, got to be there. You got to be willing to work your butt off. You got to be willing to execute, do whatever it takes. Mm-hmm. But sometimes moving to a smaller city, you'll get a better opportunity, or you'll get it sooner than you would had you stayed in a large city. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just I call it an anomaly in the system that you can take advantage of.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
not in a facetious way. I just mean it's a calculation.
Well, it's like again, we were just talking earlier. I told you, I was like, real estate, you can insider trade in real estate.
Oh yeah.
That's the anomaly in that system. And it's not illegal,
Right.
It's if something's happening and that's where things can happen a lot, right? Like you can, if you can get a hold of a piece of land and something's happening next door, maybe that seller doesn't know. Well, that's kind of insider trading, right? Like, it's not a level playing field of information. So I'm glad it's that way, right? It creates
because
the arbitrage.
Otherwise, I'm glad you're bringing it up. So I'm a capitalist. Just to be clear, I believe in it. I am. If everybody knows everything, where's the profit come from? There'll be none. If I know where to buy this bottle of water for $1, and you're willing to pay it $5 to me, why would I give it to you for $1? Like that? Where would my profit come from?
Right.
If we both know where to get it for $1, why would you ever buy it?
Yeah.
So that these anomalies that we're talking about, they're all over the place in business. And if you know that, I have no responsibility to tell you that. Like that's my profit. That's how business works. Now, obviously, I want to add value. I'm not saying cheating anybody. I'm not saying doing anything nefarious, but the profit is in the darkness in that respect, because I know things that you don't know. I know this building is for sale and you don't know it's for sale, then I'm going to get the building. Like that's how it works. Right. And then sometimes there may be somebody has more capital than I have.
Sure.
Is that an unfair advantage? Absolutely. Yeah. But they know where to access capital that I don't know about that. So I'm not able to buy that building or whatever it may be.
Yeah, no, that totally happens to us a lot. You look in the more like the institutional world of stuff. They just have different capital structure. They got different borrowing bases.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, we just can't compete with that because they have different cost of capital, And it's also too, what's really more specific in Texas is a non-disclosure state. So, we buy in Oklahoma. The one thing I hate about it is it's a disclosure state. So everybody knows what I paid for every building, and there's some things you can do when you buy a building. Like, one thing we're real adamant about is like keeping our loan amounts off our deed of trust in any recordable document, because that's where the tax rolls will go look to say, well, this building was on the tax rolls for $1.5 million, but he just took a loan out at $4 million. So he obviously paid more than $4 million for this. Right. And so we try to, you try to hide that stuff as much as possible. And so that's what creates a lot of arbitrage in a market like Texas, is the ability just for information. So, and then information becomes, data is kind of like oil, the new oil of things. And in the real estate world, in my opinion. And that's why on the industrial side, we can make money in arbitrage because we know how to buy an asset because we know what's probably going to happen with it versus someone else that doesn't really understand, a junky building on some land.
Yep.
They're kind of like, oh, what am I going to do with this? Well, in our mind, we're like, oh, well, this is what we're going to do with it. We're going to call this guy. We're going to call this guy. And, but we know there's only like 3 facilities like this in the market right now. So there's definitely demand for it, most likely. So, or we have very synergistic properties where it's like, okay, well, we know we've seen the amount of demand we had on this one and we filled it. And now we've got this one. So go grab the group of those people and put them in this one,
It's interesting with us talking about this because I'm a big, proponent of this. And sometimes I hear people that think that, well, if I know where to get it at $1, I owe to you to give it $1. But that reminds me of a story I heard about there was a factory, and this isn't a true story. I just heard this from like a Jim Rohn type. It's not Jim Rohn, but just a story that really talked about capitalism and the value of your time and effort and whatnot. Because what you're not discriminating, but outlining what you're paying for when you're paying for services. So there was a situation where there was a mechanic going on. This may be true or not, but the story goes that there was a issue going on with some machinery from a warehouse that was having some issues, and the machine broke down. And the company was spending time and money to try to figure out what was the matter with it, and they could not figure it out. It was costing them a lot of money to keep that shut down. So they brought in another person from outside of the company that had been in the business for umpteenth years and knew his way around machinery, like an engineering brain type person. They said that he came in and within 10 minutes, he solved the issue and he fixed it. And then he left. And he sent them a bill. And I don't know if it was $100,000 bill, if it was $1 million bill, whatever. And that the CEO protested. It was like, man, you were in here like 10 minutes fixing this. What am I paying for here? He said, send me an invoice showing me what I'm paying for. Because he's thinking like, where's the parts or whatever? He didn't even do nothing. He in there 10 minutes. And the guy said, the parts and labor or whatever, the amount I charged you was like, $1. But knowing what button to push and the years of execution and arduous training and knowing when my know-how that I developed for giving my whole lifetime for it, the meals I missed, the trips I take to miss this and miss that. I'm charging you charge you $999,000 for that, right?
Yeah.
And it was such a good point to illustrate, what you're really paying for is expertise. That's really what I know, what you don't know, what you would want to know and get to know. And how do I know that? I've been in this business for like 20 years, so you weren't there when I was there. You weren't staying up late when I was staying up late. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we're paying for sometimes when you're looking at expertise. And so that's why I am a huge advocate of capitalism, and I'm a huge advocate of paying people what they're worth and but not overpaying either, because I hear people attacking capitalism in that way, and I fundamentally disagree with it. I just do. And so that's why I just wanted to share that story.
So that happens in real estate brokerage too. And here's what happens. So especially, so I grew up doing submarket specialization as a broker. And, I know a neighborhood. When I was in prime time brokerage mode, I could drive you up and down every single street in my market. I could tell you the name of the guy that owns the building. I can tell you the name of the guy that leases the building. I can probably tell you when the guy's lease is coming up. Nice. And just that guy does this guy does that guy's a dick, that guy's cool, all that, right? So what happens is sometimes you get such an intimate knowledge of an okay, this doesn't happen sometime. This is what happens when you become so intimately knowledgeable and it is what you do.
Yep.
Show up to some guy's office, be like, hey man, you need anything? Yeah. Hey, I need a 30,000 foot building that's, 24 foot clear minimum. Here it is. This is the only one. And then, we make $150,000 fee or $100,000 fee, and they look at us like, man, you didn't really do anything. Like, dude, really? I call it. And so what I call it, is what that CEO you're describing was trying to do, was trying to punish a guy for hitting a home run. Right? Like, don't punish me for knowing how to hit home runs. You called me and asked me to hit a home run. You said, hey man, I need you to hit a home run on this.
Right.
Done.
Right.
Oh, now I shouldn't be paid for it because I've you only watched me like practice that once, but I've practiced it a million times. You know what I mean? And so I see that situation sometimes a lot, and I mean, I've seen people get screwed by it. People are like, oh, I'm gonna go around them because man, that's too easy. But that's that person's personality problem. But to your point, I think it's speed, right? That guy needed speed in that situation, and that guy came in and gave it to him. Like, I mean, because what was the cost per minute that line was down, right?
Right,
and so,
but knowing where to get that bill, he didn't know where that he may have never heard about it. It may have been an off market building. It may have been a building that you just happen to know that area so well that he's it's not for sale, but I think Joe will sell that building.
Yeah.
Let me go talk to him or whatnot. Like, he doesn't know he's paying you for your knowledge, for
and
your
you know
time.
what's funny? He's not even paying for it. The seller is.
I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think
he's not even paying. It's free to him.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
But in their mind, they'll be like, well, if he's got to pay a broker, then I'll get a better deal. And so it's funny how so I'm totally with you. Like, I have no problem paying for someone for speed and expertise. If I don't know it, like, man, get the guy that knows it and let's get past this. Like, I've got things to do, and I'm high centered on this right here. And it's funny how some people just discount that in life, and or for some people, but that happens. That's probably just human nature, right? And but for the most part, people will respect that, I think, and pay for it. But it's I think it comes down to just showing a testament of like, hey, I know what I'm doing.
Yep,
you can work with me or not, and so
that's how I approach it too, man. Like, listen, here's what we do. If you don't want to work, cool. I'll reach back out later. But it's definitely I don't pressure at this point.
Yeah.
If you don't value, I'm not here begging for anything. I'm here offering something.
Right.
And if you don't need it, cool.
Yeah.
That's great. No pressure. But just I'm not gonna. I'm just not gonna get on my knees for business, man. I'm not gonna.
No. Do it. So you're at Schneider, and then you make the jump to Bennett.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So tell us about that transition.
So with Bennett, so funny enough, so I faced the market because it's easier to explain as a regional VP of sales, but actually I'm a franchise operating partner. So I have I'm completely a business owner, 1099. I pay my own staff. I pay for healthcare. I pay all of those things myself as a business owner.
Yeah.
So think of it as if I owned a McDonald's franchise, it's not my burgers, so it's not my trucks or whatnot, but I am able to use those trucks on behalf of my customers. So my customers, Nestle, whoever it may be, Thyssen Crump, whoever it may be, they can use Bennett trucks, and Bennett is about a $1 billion trucking and flatbed company, and we do a lot of business with them.
Yeah.
They've been a great company. They've been in business for about 50 years.
Yeah.
So as a business owner, and the reason why I approach the market as a regional VP, just because it starts to get confusing when I'm dealing with people that have a job, for lack of a better term, like a VP of logistics or whatnot. Now, I do talk to them about it once I'm there, and it's not a big deal. So I don't keep it from them. That's why I'm openly sharing it here. But it's just easier to frame it from that perspective and once we get the conversation going or whatnot, then I can explain it. Yeah. So I've been with them now, I'd say, for about 5 years, a great company. And this was a little bit of a pivot because we do some truckload, but our largest segment is flatbed, step deck, and heavy haul. So even that is a little bit of a specialization there. Yeah. But they're based in McDonough, Georgia. And they're a good company. They got some good brand recognition as well in the domestic transportation market.
So step deck and heavy haul, that's going to be like more your oversized type stuff, right?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Because
Correct.
Step deck means it's down low, so they can get the bigger. They don't have to raise the equipment up that high to get on it. And
and then you got double step. Yeah, you got different variations depending upon what type of equipment that you need or what it is that you're trying to ship.
Yeah.
And with flatbed, as you know from being in the steel business, it's more labor intensive than doing 53-foot dry van because the driver has to put on straps. Sometimes they have to tarp it, so some stuff can't be rained on, so they got to put on a certain amount of tarps or whatever it may be. And so the driver has to do that work. So there's actually a challenge of recruiting flatbed drivers. That's a real challenge because some of the younger people don't want to do the work. They may just want to do, let me just drive the truck, put up to the back dock door, you guys load it, I'll drive off. Yeah. So flatbed is definitely becoming more of a specialization, and it typically does pay better than van truckload. Yeah. Now, this market that we're in, like I've been telling you, we're in month 26 of a of longest freight recession on record. Some people think it isn't the longest, but it's the longest I've ever seen. And I've been in the business since '05. I mean, talking 2008, 2009 recession where the whole economy was in a recession. This is the longest that I've ever seen it. So it's definitely going to be some changes, I think, coming in a year or two.
So why don't you touch on why that recession's happening? Because we were talking about it earlier, and I think it really kind of parallels some real estate issues as well. So why don't you kind of explain what's causing the recession in freight?
Yep. Okay. So during COVID, a lot of money was pumped into the system. Yep. Everybody was getting checks, PPP loans. I think they were doing some employee retention payments, credit, employment retention credits. So it was money just sloshing through the systems. People weren't driving anymore to work or whatnot. So they said all this disposable income that they were working with. And so what happened was that it was more freight to be moved.
Yeah.
And the payments for the freight was higher. So there was also the supply chain issues. So I bought a car at that time, and I had to trade that car out 9 months in because they had to supply the chips.
Yeah.
There was a shortage of chips, and they couldn't. The only thing we were waiting on was a chip.
Yeah.
There was something wrong with the chip. We weren't on chip.
The chip manufacturer.
Yeah, the chip manufacturer. So that piece was going on. It was just a lot of different things happening.
Yeah.
And freight, it was just a lot of freight moving for a lot of money. And so a lot of people started freight brokerages. Like, let's say if it's a driver at a large transportation company, and he'd say, hey, man, I see how much money that this large transportation company I'm working for is making. Mm-hmm. I'm going to quit, take a truck, buy a truck, put my brother in one, put my cousin. So it was a lot of companies started. Yeah. And that was fine for a while. And a lot of money was made, from a lot of people. There was also something called freight dispatching that came into the market, which I never really believed in, but it was people selling courses on how to start a trucking company and make, $10,000 a month, with no college degree and whatever it was. It was a whole thing around it. Like a lot of people got into the industry. Supply chain was on a lot of people's lips. Yeah. Which helps from a marketing perspective to sell the courses. Because it was supply chain short. Like I was on the Dallas News interviewed over supply chain stuff. It was on everybody's mind.
Yeah.
And so what has happened though is that as the economy, I know the economy is doing well, like stock market perspective, but consumers are spending less. Yeah. So there's less demand now. There's still a crap ton of trucks out there. Yeah. I am surprised that more trucking companies have not gone under yet. So Yellow, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of Yellow going under. This is a major company, 100 years old, thousands upon thousands of trailers available or whatnot. So there are people going out of business, but not enough to affect the market. So even when Yellow went, we all thought that, the market may change. Is this what it's going to take? The dam's broken now. And it was like pouring this water on the sand in Destin. It just soaked it. It was so much capacity. The market soaked it right up. It wasn't anything. And so what I've heard is that banks do have trucking companies that are being slow to pay and stuff, and that they got a lot of trucks on their book. They don't want to foreclose on it because what am I going to do with a truck right now? Trucks are ubiquitous. Like I don't people got trucks sitting around, whatever it may be. So what am I going to do with this? But that can't last long. And so I've heard similar notions in your world as well from a commercial perspective, like that the banks have some I'll say bad debt or soon to be bad debt on their books, and there's going to have to be At some point, they're going to have to be some changes being made. And so that's happening in trucking, but it has not happened as fast. So right now, the rates are extremely low and people are going out of business. But I do think that's going to become pronounced because I don't think that I'd be surprised if the market changes in 6 months and maybe it may be another year. And I just don't think guys are going to be able to last that long. So
I think real estate development has kind of paralleled what you're talking about. And primarily, I would say primarily in industrial. I think, all of a sudden everybody kind of became a developer in industrial, right? Because there's this, you had the Amazon effect. Let's talk pre-COVID, right? You got the Amazon effect coming pre-COVID. Just everything starts getting to be bought out of a warehouse, and then capital was cheap. And I always say development. Capital was cheap for the people buying trucks because it was free, essentially. PPP money was free, all forgiven. And the cost, I think development in commercial real estate is done to the cost of capital, not to the need of supply and demand. And so what you see now is there's a bunch of these bigger buildings that are vacant because all these people were rushing to build these buildings because, hey, man, this guy's built a building. Man, they got at least for the walls were even up. Golly, I'm going to do that too. Boom, 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 boom. So everybody scales up because of what happened during COVID, right? So everybody, during COVID, we ran out of everything, right? Yep. And then supply chain gets all out of whack. And then so everybody starts building these warehouses to store more just to have it ready to go. But then we kind of hit a wall where it's like, okay, everybody's good now. We don't need all these warehouses. I mean, look at Amazon. They went out. How many warehouses does Amazon go out and lease during COVID? And now how many did they put up for sublease? Because we just don't need this much, or we've been more efficient in the space that we have.
Yep.
And so now we have a lot of these bigger box spaces just sitting. And I think they will get absorbed at some point, but I think industrial is going to be safe. Industrial in Dallas will be safe. But to your point about banks, I think, another effect of COVID though was the kind of the death of the real office tower. And those are the ones that the banks are trying to kick the can down the road a little bit. But, there's a big issue there with as an office owner, do I put a bunch of capital in my building? Is anybody really going to show up for this?
Isn't there a building in, I think I read in Dallas Business Journal about the tallest building in Fort Worth? Mm-hmm. The bank repossessed it.
So that deal was, that guy bought that. That story blows my mind. Here's why. That guy bought that building in March of 21 for $137 million. First off, who was the bank that made the loan on that? Secondly, it got foreclosed on by its second lien holder, not its first. They had a second lien for $12 million and a first lien for 67, I believe, or 63, whatever. And so they had $85 million. They paid $137 million for this asset. My numbers might be a little off, but they're pretty close.
Yep.
Okay, who's the banks that made the loans on office during March of 21 during COVID, as we're coming out of COVID? And who's the equity that did that? And can I have the equity's phone number? Because I'll make you a lot better returns over here buying some ugly ass industrial buildings. What's coming out now on that deal is I think that guy defrauded he falsified loan document. I think that guy's probably going to go to jail that did it. That got foreclosed on.
Wow.
So you're seeing a lot of that, man. You're seeing a lot of guys a lot of multifamily operators, they all took all this floating rate debt. Everybody looked like a genius taking floating rate debt back in the day, and now it's floated up to their eyeballs, and they can't breathe. And you're seeing a lot of that. You're seeing a lot of multifamily it's underwater because they can't service the debt. So a lot of multifamily people are going to have to get pref equity checks to come in and help save the day on them. And there's what I like to call the cash in refi is what's happening right now instead of the cash out refi. Everybody would stabilize these assets, cash out a bunch of money on it on a refi, and then now their notes are coming due. And rates are jumping from, let's say they were in a note at 3.5%, 4.25%. Now their rate's going to, 8%, and they're having to bring money to the closing table. So, not a good time for some operators because they got to call their capital partners and be like, "Hey, we need money." And I'll tell you what, every person signs it that they will have to do a capital call if needed, but man, no one wants to get that phone call.
Yep.
It's not a good feeling. I think there's, so you would be trucking companies going out of business. Us are just assets getting foreclosed on, right? And
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also brokers are going out of business too.
Really? Oh, because they just can't make any money on loads, right?
Yes.
They can't make, there's no spread in the load.
There's not enough spread in the loads.
Yeah.
People are taking loads for loss. So also I was at a recent conference and they said that the average, not all, but that the average owner-operator is operating at 19% below cost. So they're holding on by there, but it's gonna be. I just don't see how. I don't know how we've lasted this long without more issues.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it's the same with the commercial side. I think it's going to be a lot of opportunity out there.
Yeah.
And it sounds, again, remember I'm a capitalist, so don't shoot me, but I can't wait.
Yeah.
It creates opportunities.
It does.
It creates
It's
a lot of opportunities. If you know what you're doing,
yeah.
If you made wise financial decisions, you got access to capital, you got access to relationships, you'll be able to take advantage of opportunity. I mean, that's what Warren Buffett does.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks he's a sweet old man,
Yeah.
but he buys when there's blood in the streets.
That's right.
And so it is what it is. That's how capitalism works.
It is. It's we always take, I'd say 9 out of 10 times we have 5-year fixed rate debt on everything we got. We don't ever float. So we last year we ran a analysis. We took every one of our loans that we have with our banks on our assets, and we took the NOI at the maturity based on the rental schedules that were in place, and we marked to market our asset at a 10% interest rate. And when we did that, I think we only had like 4 assets out of 30 that failed.
Wow.
And at 10%, like, I mean, we're not going to see that, right?
Yeah.
Especially with a leased building,
Right.
So we felt really good about our, we had a really good basis in all of our assets, and as when we showed up at the bank, they were actually pretty pleased. They're like, "Oh, man, you're in pretty good shape."
Yeah.
So,
they've seen worse.
Yeah,
A lot worse.
So I don't know. There's a lot of numbers that can be gamed in the system on the financial side on a piece of real estate like that, or probably like any kind of piece of equipment or anything, any kind of asset, right? Like it's really how you capitalize it is how it can make certain different returns happen. And, but to your point, like, we'll be ready for those things. That there's still a lockup right now between buyers and sellers. I still think there's still a disconnect, but the transactions just aren't getting done. So if they're not getting done, sellers are eventually going to have to sell for some reason. But we're definitely seeing more distress. I've definitely seen more bankruptcy cases. Like, I mean, there's literally two buildings we're buying this year that are going to be in bankruptcy cases.
Wow.
And that'll continue to happen because people just aren't spending the money anymore. So
I heard because ultimately the consumers is what's driving it. And I watching CNBC today, they just said consumers have. They've gone through their savings. The PPP money's gone.
Yeah.
PPP money's gone. And you may, even if you have equity in your home, how are you going to tap it?
Yeah.
It's going to be super expensive. So
Very
a lot of people are not doing that.
And no one wants to move because I got a mortgage at 3.5%. I got to move. Oh, you just did it though.
I did.
I
put down 20%. I put down 20% to make the mortgage more palatable. But it's less competition. Like, I was able to get concessions, whereas a few years ago I was looking. Don't call my phone. It's 30 different offers. People were putting in no home inspection. Like, I was like, man, I can't. I just bowed out for a while and waited until now, and so I'm doing it now. Yeah. So even if there is a dip in Dallas, which I doubt in Dallas, I mean Dallas is growing so much, but even if it is, I got some cushion there to ride the dip. It ain't gonna dip 20%.
No, no, not here.
Yeah,
it's the Dallas real estate market has been some kind of anomaly the last decade. Honestly, it's we're gonna need a helicopter market pretty soon just to get anywhere.
For sure.
After we just looked at the Fields thing, oh my gosh, just think of all the people that got to feed that thing.
It's gonna be
a lot.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing. I remember when I was in Green Bay and I had a choice actually to move to back to Atlanta, or move to Dallas, and me and my wife chose Dallas, even though I have a cousin here, but we don't really know each other. And then I had a friend here. Funny enough, the same friend that let me sleep on his couch in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And so he lived here. But when I would come visit for work, I just used to tell my wife, it's so expansive. That was the best way I knew to put it. Like, I can't tell when I'm in Grapevine or Irving or Arlington. Like, it just doesn't stop. Like in Atlanta or other cities, there's breaks of trees and, it'll be like the woods for a little bit and then it'll get to the next city. It's just no break. So I love Dallas. I love it here, man. And, we're going to be calling it home for forever, really.
Yeah. No, I'm born and raised, and I'm probably not going anywhere else. So, well, let me ask you this: what kind of resources do you look at for like freight? Like, I get on FreightWays every now and then and look around at that website, but like, what do you look at? Because I always like to know what industry specific people like what they look at and like what their pulse is on things.
So FreightWaves is definitely a great resource. Mm-hmm. I'm still old school, so I do go to. I like to get print magazines and read them, but they have online too.
Yeah.
So transportation topics.
Yeah.
You have inbound logistics. You have DC Velocity. You have the Parcel magazine. So several magazines, but you don't have to get the magazine. You can just go online and
Yeah.
they have all the articles there. You might have to pay to get into them, but you know, the Journal of Commerce is another thing that's kind of interesting. I look at that. I have a network clearly of people at all like railroads, large transportation companies, where I can pick up a phone and, hey, I'm seeing this. What are you seeing? So I call that my counsel. I can kind of triangulate where the market's going and what's going on based upon, you know, my counsel, so to speak. We're friends. We've been knowing each other for a long time. And so I learned there. I'd say those are my two biggest is through people and through, you know, using the internet, and then also understanding the history. So that'd be a broader conversation. But you know, so I have the Schneider's book. They have a book. Werner has a book. I have it. JB Hunt has a book. I have it. And when I say book, you know how you have like a 25-year or 50-year commemoration kind of book about your history and legacy. So I'll do that, and it just really gives you a lot of information. And then also, podcasts have grown a lot too. Yeah. So I've been on quite a few podcasts, and most of them that I've been, some industrial, but most of them have been in transportation. Yeah. So there are some really good podcasts that are out there, tons of good ones. Because when I first came into the industry, all we had was transportation topics. It was a long form kind of magazine that was this big. You had Journal of Commerce. It was just really nowhere to go to learn about the business. So you just kind of had to learn it ad hoc as you could, you know, as you were looking for things. Yeah. But now it's information galore. So anything that you want to know or you want to learn, it's all out there, man. Yeah. No, that's it's you know, I end up getting a lot of my real estate news from Twitter now. It seems like there's a whole retweet community. That. Yeah. But there's also now a freight Twitter community too. I've noticed that like Twitter's really become an interesting area. You know, I've seen something kind of interesting with like, you know, there's people, you know, obviously online influence is something that, you know, can definitely help build a brand for anything now. It's a cornerstone of building your brand now, obviously. But what I noticed about Twitter, which I thought was cool, and some people might hate me for saying this, but when you have people that build a brand like on Instagram or maybe Facebook or something like that, none of them can really, when they're like trying, whatever that is, they're trying to sell really hard in there, that doesn't really work in Twitter, because a lot of that's like a lot of flair and a lot of sizzle, but no steak, you know? Yeah. And when you get into Twitter, you get into like a lot of, you know, it's kind of gets more of a deeper thought. 100%. And it's funny, I've looked at profiles of people that are like maybe influencers or something like that on this side. And then I look at their Twitter profile and I'm like, there's zero interaction with you in Twitter. Correct. You know? And Twitter's definitely is definitely different. Because I feel like
I guess it's X now.
Yeah. X. Because Instagram to me is more consumer centric. Mm-hmm. Like if I got a cool looking, you know, bottle of, you know, bourbon or something, and I can get like Kim Kardashian to hold it or something, then I can sell like 1,000 of them. In a minute. Yeah. But with Twitter doesn't operate like that. Mm-mm. And then if you make an assertion on Twitter, people are going to call you out on it. Oh yeah. That know what they're talking about. Yeah. And I'll say another, because I use LinkedIn a lot, like a ton. I'm on LinkedIn a ton. So that's how I know a lot of people too, is through LinkedIn. And I'm regularly on there through podcasting or whatever it may be. But people will call you out on there too. Oh, yeah. So if you make an assertion, you sure better be able to back it up with some data. But to me, that's refreshing. Because I can see these people think you got a buy group and a sell group. You got some people think that, okay, the freight market's getting ready to turn. And somebody's like, oh, no, it's not even getting ready to turn. I think this. And they kind of outline their reasons behind it. Yeah. And that's been very interesting to see that play out on LinkedIn and the Twitters of the world. Yeah. It's just a little bit smarter. Now, you got some conspiracy stuff on Twitter for sure. But I think that the free exchange of ideas, you're going to get a little of that. But I'd be willing to put up with that to get the free dialogue that I get on a Twitter. To me, it's well worth it, because you could just evaluate yourself. It's like, oh, this dude, like, he's smoking crack or something. I don't know where he's coming up with that. Yeah. You know, but this makes sense. So you kind of I like that free flow of ideas. Yeah. You know, I can't yell up, you know, in the middle of a theater and say fire. You know, that's illegal. But in terms of just the free flow of ideas, I can just say, I disagree with this or I agree with this, and here's why. Twitter's been a great tool for that. Yeah. No, I enjoy it. I don't get on as much as I lurk more than I comment on it, but when I do, it is fun to get engagements with people. And I've been the guy that calls people out sometimes, like, no, you're absolutely wrong. And like, I got all the skins to prove it, so try to tell me wrong. You know, so you know, for whatever that subject was, you know, and so but no, I love using those resources, and it's cool how you can kind of just really touch, you know,
engage with a lot of different people through just all these channels now.
Yep.
Good and bad.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I've had some combos on there for sure.
So what do you, I always like asking this, what's a book that you like that kind of really changed you or something that or made an impact on you?
The Lessons of History by William Durant.
Okay. Tell me about it.
It talks about, so it's a part of he's a historian of sorts, sociologist of sorts, and just talks about human beings and how we behave.
Yeah.
So being in sales, and just in general, I'm kind of a nerd anyway, but I'm curious how people think.
Yeah.
And how they come to their conclusions. I may completely disagree with what you're saying, but I will understand how you got there and what gave genesis to you. And so that book does a good job of talking about lessons of history. And so as an example, one chapter is called Life is Competition.
Okay.
So, and his chapter settles that. So everybody gets a trophy. I know that doesn't work long term.
Yeah.
Because life's competition. He makes this assertion and then he backs it up historically through, Greece, Rome, the animal kingdom, like whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
And then he maps that out.
Yeah,
as an
okay.
example. So he makes these assertions that are lessons from history. Like one lesson from history is that life's competition.
Yeah.
And so that's settled. And then to me it's almost like seed time and harvest as an example. Like as a farmer, you got summer, you got winter, you got spring, and there's a certain time to plant, there's a certain time to pick up, there's a certain time to do whatever it may take. You're not going to get around that.
Yeah.
So how do I operate within nature itself to produce a harvest? Now I can use some technology, I can do whatever, but winter's going to be winter, spring's going to be spring, summer's going to be it's going to be what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And so I try to make decisions from a principle-based place. So that's why I like that book so much. And when I read it, it changed it definitely was a life changer.
Yeah.
That book, and listening to when I was in Jackson, part of the reason why I was aggressive too, I had kind of rough in Jackson, but I worked at I worked at the library and I got a copy of, they used to have these cassette tapes. It'd be like about this size and they'd have like 10, 10, like 1, 2, 3, maybe 8 of them. And I grabbed a copy of Earl Nightingale's Lead the Field.
Okay.
Listened to it. And it was life changing. I've had pivotal moments, people bringing ideas to me, and I'm kind of introspective anyway. Like if you tell me something, I'll think about it.
Yeah.
Now, I may come back and say, I completely disagree and here's why.
Yeah.
But I'll at least consider it.
Yeah.
I'll at least entertain it. And these ideas that were brought to me, they helped change my life, man. And that's why I left Mississippi. My family's still there, whatever. It's a great place. And I'd moved back in older age. I'm not down in Mississippi. I just mean in terms of leaving a smaller city where I'm from to come chase big dreams. Just books and, meeting people like you and different people that are like mind and are go-getters. It's fun, man. It's a blast.
Yeah.
So I definitely suggest that book to anybody. And it's not even super long.
Yeah.
But it's going to challenge your thinking, and it's going to help settle some things for you. So you see, it's okay to compete, and that's normal and natural, and it actually helps society continue to progress. Competition does.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That'd be an interesting one. No, at the end of the day, I was talking with someone about this earlier. Like it's all, people will say some thought or something like that. I'm like, yeah, it's if you want the beginning of that all, it's all in Proverbs. Just go read Proverbs. It's all there.
True.
And
it's nuggets in Proverbs for sure.
Yeah,
Definitely nuggets in Proverbs.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, okay. Last question I like to ask. What's something unique about you, like a talent you have or something like that not many people really know about you? They know you're the freight guy, but like what else? Or like something you do on the side or your hobby or?
So the first thing that'll be shocking is that I have 6 children.
Yeah.
So I've been married to my wife for 17 years. It's all ours, no twins. So I have 6 kids, 4 boys, 2 girls. So I got 16 down to 5.
Yeah.
So that's not normal.
Yeah.
And another thing is that I still collect vinyl.
Yeah.
I'm a music, so my whole family, I know you're into music. My dad's a minister of music. His church, both sisters are ministers of music at their church. Like we know how to sing, play the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So I collect vinyl, like 70s vinyl. Yeah. And I still have my old comic books
from
high school. And I have the first time that Deadpool got introduced.
Oh,
it was
okay.
a comic called The New Mutants.
Uh-huh.
And I have that one.
Oh,
it's
that's
probably
awesome.
like $500 or something now, but I bought it for like 25, like
Oh.
super cheap. It was like 125 or something back in the days.
That's
when I was
cool.
in elementary, so I still have that. So those are two things that people may find interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is interesting. It's, I took, it's funny how, we collect records now too. And it's, it's fun. I have the studio at my house, and it's like, we just outlined the walls and records and all that stuff and whatnot. It's funny. I took we got a shadow box coffee table, and I took all of my CD cases, all the pamphlets from the CD cases, and that's all the wallpaper of the the bottom of the shadow box. And then it's all, you don't get a concert ticket anymore, but it's all my old concert tickets. I saved them all so that they're all scattered throughout.
That's cool.
All there. And so, but the vinyl stuff's cool again, right? Because it's like, it's so where you can touch it again and whatnot. And it's funny, me and Ward were talking about this, how like, when we were kids with music, you get a CD or whatever, and you would get the booklet out, and I would read it from front to back, like who everybody was involved and all that stuff. And kids don't get that now. So one, you got your music instantaneously in the palm of your hand. You can take it anywhere, but on the flip side, you don't get to touch all the artwork and all the stuff and that goes with it.
Yeah, you miss a lot of those things. I still like that. Actually, I don't know if you've been to Conrad has an office, but he has those. You remember when we were kids? We were probably about the same age. But you go to your grandparents' homes and they had those big like it wasn't a speaker. It'd be like a record player right here. And it'd be these two speakers all connected in one plus a VHS tape. And, whatever, not VHS, but a cassette tape piece. He like actually bought one of those or whatever and decked it out or whatnot and put it in his office. So I thought that was pretty hilarious. So, but I like that. I like those kind of nostalgic thing, like the record and taking it out and the art of it and seeing. I'm with you, like because that's how I got Deadpool. Actually, I follow particular artists. So I didn't just buy this comic. Like this artist had a series for New Mutants, and so that's how I ended up with it. So so it's just interesting. The young people, they just don't have those opportunities to dig deep into, because you could find an artist or whatever, and then you could go real deep and who designed the cover, and it's so many different ways to do that, and they just don't have it now, man.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I do right now. It's you get deep into those things and it's fun. It's something that kind of gets lost now, but but records are bringing that back to a degree. So my kids get into records and they like having them and stuff like that. So that is a good thing, because you thought you kind of lost music to the digital age, but there's a little reach back into the history books with the analog and all that. So,
but funny enough, everything is not on Spotify though. So I have some vinyl that's not on Spotify.
Yeah.
So some artists just don't let
their stuff on Spotify. Right.
And some stuff's rare. Like some of the stuff I have is from the 70s and 60s, and some stuff's not up there.
Yeah.
So you can't get everything on there. Some stuff you got to get on by.
You got to work for some of that. So, well, man, I appreciate it. This has been awesome. It's been great getting to know you here recently too, and I know we'll be doing a bunch of other stuff together. But
I told you I want to shop with you, man. So let me know.
So, what's the best way for people to reach out and get in touch with you?
The easiest way is I'm Sherman Lewis Barnes on LinkedIn. Easy to find there. I'm super active. If you reach out, I'll respond instantaneously. So that's the easiest way to catch me.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Sherman, man, I appreciate it. This has been fun. We'll have you on again.
Let's do it.
You'll be the freight guy that'll come in, the logistics side. And it's a very integral part of what we do.
100%.
So, and it drives demand to our buildings. So
100%.
It's great getting your perspective on it, and we appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I'd love to come back.
Yeah. Thanks, man.